Welcome back, or welcome if you're just joining us. This is the France 24 debate, part one of our discussion. We saw a France 24 report on the difficulties of getting aid, food aid, desperately needed for Centrafrique from the Cameroonian border to Bangui. And we asked, when we looked at the burnt-out villages, when we saw the tension, whether it was ethnic cleansing. We're talking about it with Jean-Baptiste KOBA of the Independence Party of the Central African Republic. Also, Chad's former foreign minister, today in the opposition, Acheikh IBN-OUMAR. Dominique, retired UN general, is with us. And David Brown, the U.S. State Department's senior advisor on the Central African Republic, who joins us from Washington. Jean-Baptiste KOBA, you're from the south of the country.
Yes.
What's it like in your part of Centrafrique?
Excuse me?
What's it like in your part of Centrafrique right now?
Something. Recently we had a very big move from Muslims. They are killing this area and are going back to Chad, to Bangui and Chad after. It is very awful.
And as David Brown was saying before the break, religious leaders from all sides have been calling on people for temperance and to not be violent. Those calls are just not being heeded.
Apparently it's not enough.
How do you explain it?
Because I think I'm really concerned and I'm ashamed as a Central African citizen, because we fell on everything. We fell on building a state. We fell on building an economy, a sound economy. And we failed, most of all, we fell on building a nation, a unifying identity. And that part of this problem will be our next biggest challenge for the future. Building a nation and building a melting pot nation.
We're talking about places where Muslims and local Christians and animists had cohabitated for centuries.
Yes, they used to live together.
So why? Why now?
We don't know, but what I understand, that when the Seleucus rebels have been neutralized, there is something, this kind of neutralization of the Seleucus troops unleashed, something we were not expecting. The spirit of revenge from part of the population. That's a problem.
One French officer quoted in a French daily newspaper Le Monde said, "We're doing our best to protect civilians. That's the aim of Operation Sangaris, as it's called, and of the disarmament of the Seleka militias. They've committed many crimes during the past year, but it's true that our intervention has offered a balance of power now that's favorable to the anti-Balakas." Those are these vigilantes that you saw in that report, who in reprisal are committing the same crimes. This was unexpected, Dominique Trinquand?
I mean, in military terms, it should have been better probably to have a military intervention in March last year, at the time when Seleka was arriving, because then you don't have the spiral of violence. You just stop something. In political terms, it was not possible. France can no longer intervene when there is a coup to put another coup in place. So it was not possible in military terms. But then the spiral of violence started at that time with the Seleka, and now the anti-Balaka is taking revenge, and we are in a very difficult position.
Acheikh IBN-OUMAR?
Well, allow me to say, first of all, that I am not very comfortable with the whole narrative about the situation, be it the official statement from the various governments involved in the situation in Central Africa, or be it from the international media. I don't like the notion that the problem is a religious problem, or there is an antagonism, a fundamental antagonism between Muslims and Christians.
That's what the Archbishop of Bangui said as well.
Yeah, no, but on the ground, even now, at this day, the only safe havens for Muslims in Central Africa are the churches, even today. So that's one thing. Second thing, the people that are perpetrating the killings and the lootings. They are not Christians. Have you seen the images? They are bearing not crosses, but local traditional charms and talismans. And there are nothing of Christianity in them. So talking about and the Seleka, you know it, the Seleka, part of them were genuine citizens from Central African Republic with some social and political discontents with their government, but many of them were simple bandits from Chad and Sudan, and nobody was talking about them until everything got out of control. So I think that all the parties involved in the country, especially the neighboring countries, Chad and Sudan, and France and the other country in the central in the region, have been very, under the level that should be expected from them as, committed to solving the problem. Final thing, I am moved by the whole thing, but I have some difficulty to express myself because, it is revolting. And the talk about genocide and ethnic cleansing, you are giving too great importance to simple looters. They are very happy to see themselves on television, and they are not even recognized by leadership.
Thousands of people who have been forced to flee their homes.
We have seen
and their country even.
In the 70s, in Chad, we have witnessed a situation that had been worse than the present situation in Central Africa. With the Libyan, the French army, the Sudanese, people kicking each other. And at that time, there were talk about Muslim, Christian, and so on. And we have been able to overcome the situation through political processes. So the problem is essentially a political problem. It is not a religious problem. And besides, there is too much stress put on simple looters and bandits. Some of them...
but that's not what
have been dealt with as security problem and discipline problem, and not as a political or religious problem.
Acheikh and UMAR, entire neighborhoods have been cleared of their citizens. This is not just a few looters.
A little child can burn down a whole village by a box of matches. That is very easy. When there is a breakdown of law order, it is easy for any hoodlums or bandit to go on a killing spree and looting. We witness this even in Europe sometimes.
All right, let me ask David Brown. What did you think of what that French officer said? How perhaps by taking on the Seleka militiamen who were committing atrocities, we unwittingly unleashed the fury of, tipped the balance in favor of these vigilante groups, these anti-Balakas.
Well, I would say that in this entire series of events, that it's important that MISCA and Sangarist forces appear to be professional and balanced in their reaction. I think it was very welcomed, the strong statement that was made by the Sangarist commander, as well as President Samba Panza in recent days, about the strong actions that they're going to take against the anti-Balaka. As the other participant noted, much of what has been going on is simply criminal behavior, opportunistic criminal behavior by unemployed youth. Yes, there are certainly very important elements of desire for revenge and things like that, and that speaks to the issue of transitional justice mechanisms. We have to get the justice and penal systems working again in the Central African Republic, so that the citizenry believes that the government will take actions in response to their grievances, and so they no longer take justice in their own hands through these lynchings in the streets.
All right, and let's hear those remarks that you were mentioning there. On Wednesday, the new president of the Central African Republic, speaking in the company of the visiting French defense minister, vowed to go to war, as she put it, against the anti-Balaka.
I have reaffirmed my will not to give up 1 inch of the territory that has always been united and secular. So, concerning this issue, I think we'll be firm and take measures that are needed, so no desire for partition can prosper.
velléité de sécession ne puisse prospérer.
Her remarks coming 24 hours after what you could call equally strong language from the head of French peacekeepers, Francisco Soriano.
We need to stop the troublemakers, especially those claiming to be anti-Balaka. And we know that there are looters and thugs among them, criminals. And that is really clear today from our efforts. Today they are the troublemakers. They are the ones causing heavy losses among the population. They are the ones stigmatizing communities. And today they have become enemies of peace in this country.
David Brown, you say that the MISCA, that those African peacekeepers and the French have to be seen to be balanced and professional. With this statement, where effectively the head of French peacekeepers lays down the gauntlet to those anti-Balaka vigilante groups, how's that going to be perceived? We already heard our own correspondent on Wednesday saying that there was a bit of booing when they heard remarks like that from the new president.
Well, it's absolutely necessary that they be professional and balanced. They need to regain control of the western part of the country, end acts of lynching and looting in Bangui, and also eventually move up to the north and northeast. And when they move to the north and northeast in areas that are controlled by the ex-Seleka, they'll also have to be professional and balanced with the ex-Seleka and disarming them and passing the same message, encouraging reconciliation at the same time.
Dominique, are the French going out on a limb when they're brandishing the anti-Balakas as thugs?
No, I think the picture given by the force commander was the right picture. I mean, currently the problem are the anti-Balaka around Bangui and going out from Bangui, and probably in Birao are still the anti-Seleka people. So the main point is that, as my neighbor said, to rebuild a state. To rebuild a state, you have to take weapons from everyone and people going to work. And then you can build a state.
The problem, though, of taking weapons is when you disarmed the Seleka militiamen, you were taking guns off of them. Now, how do you take machetes off of the anti-Balakas?
You're right. That's the point. The point is that weapons are not only rifles, but that they are machetes. And so you've got to be able to react very quickly everywhere. And in Bangui, which is the major problem, I mean, in Bangui, is to be present everywhere in Bangui. So that's why I was saying that you need probably more troops. That's why the UN is planning.
How many more?
UN is planning for 10,000 troops, which is something which could be, I haven't worked the figures, but it's probably something credible. But also the problem with the issue with the UN, it's that it's not only 10,000 peacekeepers, it's the whole organization with all the different sectors which will be worked by the UN, and also the budget will come because as I said already in this stage, it's probably an operation for the next 10 years to rebuild the state.
10,000 troops. Where are those 10,000 going to come from?
You've got already 6,000, so you need 4,000 more. So you need to fund them. Of course, the difficulty is that currently you've got two operations very close, Mali and Central African Republic. And you've got, for the first time, a lot of African troops, French-speaking African troops, but they are already coming from Cameroon, from Gabon, from Congo. The point is that you need to fund these troops, you need to equip them, because they were not used to be deployed like that. So you need to equip them, to train them, and this is the objective of the African Union, to be able to deal with the crisis in Africa with African troops. And we've seen a deployment between December to February of 6,000 troops. It's a major achievement. 5 years ago, it was impossible. So we start a new process in Africa now.
David Brown, we saw in eastern Congo a few months back that there was this rapid response unit that was put in, and it helped to oust rebels there. Is the U.S. prepared to help launch such an initiative for the Central African Republic?
our focus right now is on supporting the efforts of the African Union-led MISCA force, supported by Sangaris and soon to be supported by about 500 European forces that will be based in Bangui itself. We believe that it's more effective to improve the logistics and headquarter operations and the equipping of the existing troops. We've called just the other day, our Assistant Secretary for African Affairs talked about the need for additional troops. So we certainly agree on that. I spoke just today with the political chief of MISCA, General Makoko. His emphasis was not on additional troops per se, but on additional foreign police. The original mission was to be 1,025 police. They only have 660. As we try and restore order, the important law enforcement function perhaps has been underemphasized. And so we would like to see greater support for both MISCA police as well as re-equipping, retraining joint patrols with the Central African Republic police and gendarme.
Jean-Baptiste KOBA, the 500 European forces pledged so far. They haven't arrived yet. You heard that the need as well for police officers. Do you think the international community has failed, has not done enough?
It's not enough, but we hope they will bring some more troops on the ground, as my friend said.
Is it up to Europe to bring troops? Is it up to the United States to bring troops? To France to bring more troops?
Everybody. France, some European countries, and some African countries as well.
Dominique, is that going to happen?
I just take the point of the police and the former police unit. I think Washington is right. I mean, you need troops in the country, but probably in Bangui currently you need more police and more former police units, certainly. So it's a mixture. When I'm talking about troops, I'm not talking about soldier and police. I'm talking of the all sets of peacekeepers. And but certainly, look at Central African Republic is as large as France. 10,000 troops to take back the control of the country. It's not much. I mean, I think it's a reasonable figure. Yeah.
Acheikh IBN-OUMAR, we're realizing how different this is from the situation in Mali.
Well, it is very different because, as has been said before, it is a civil strife. But in Mali, there were a case of a kind of classical military group from Al-Qaeda and their cronies that had been trying to conquer part of the countries. Or here we have, an intricate social and political conflict with the breakdown of the law and the order, which was not the case in Mali. I think that the mistake was made by the French troop when they first came into Bangui. They thought that the people will be lining the street and applauding like in Bamako. And the great mistake they made is that to disarm the Seleka member in the street in front of the thugs. Disarmament should have taken place within the barracks, not in the street. And the first member of the Seleka that had been disarmed and maimed by the mob triggered everything. I think the lynchment of violence that my brother Mr. KOBA has been talking about, I think it started here. But now there are, of course, some pressing needs. Security, humanitarian aid. Security, more troops, more policemen, more, etc., and more food aid. But that will not solve the problem. It's very urgent to have these things put on the ground. But the problem, I insist on it, is essentially a political problem. And a few months ago, we are talking about the Seleka as the devil. Now we are talking about the anti-Balaka as the devil. That's not solve the problem, even if there is some truth with it. I think that the main thing is in the hand of the political elite in Central Africa. They should engage in a genuine process of internal reconciliation. The foreign aid can only be, support to this process. I think
has to come from the Central Africans themselves.
The elite, they are very, very silent. The political leader, we have heard the religious leader, but the political leader have it is very intriguing, this silence. I think that, and the election will not solve the problem. We need a genuine political reconciliation within Central Africa, and we need the rebuilding of the armed forces in Central Africa, and not rely on the foreign forces for every situation of security, even it is important now.
All right. Lots of comments have been coming in to us on Facebook and on Twitter. We have one here from Yetaka saying, so apparently a genocide is unfolding in the CAR. This is crazy. We can call it a Rwanda bis, as they say in French, Rwanda 2. We're coming up on the 20th anniversary, Jean-Baptiste KOBA, of the genocide in Rwanda. Why is this fury still being unleashed, this kind of fury where people can kill each other with machetes?
We are not in the same situation like in Rwanda, because in Rwanda there was a political motivation. And these people...
It was planned from above.
Yes. The anti-Balaka, they don't have a political agenda. They are only looters and starving people. And the problem is a political problem. We need to solve this political problem before we move to something very, very bad.
And one of the ironies, we had another comment from one of the viewers earlier saying chasing out the Muslims who are shopkeepers has accentuated that food crisis.
It's going to be, we are going to pay a very big price for this, because all the network of traders in this country is are the Muslims. So it's going to be very difficult.
Dominique TRINQUAND, we've talked about reconciliation in the past and in other places, but here, as Jean-Baptiste was saying, we're talking about a failed state over a long period of time. How do you put it all back together again? You were saying that the soldiers and policemen are going to have to be there for a long time, but this push towards elections, do you take Acheikh's point that we're maybe obsessing too much with the electoral process?
No, I mean, when I'm talking about a long process, I'm talking not a long process of a lot of foreign troops staying in the country. I'm talking about a long process of the multi-dimensional mission of UN, which is a long process because you need to rebuild everything, justice, police, everything. You need to rebuild that. And as Jean-Baptiste has just said, why you've got this violence currently, because you've got people who are starving, and they are killing the people who are not starving. The Muslims were the shopkeepers, the people who have something, and the others have nothing. And that's why it's happening. And it will be a long process to rebuild all the states, because when you've got the PAM arriving with all the food, it's nice.
The World Food Program.
But now it's not building something. It's just providing food. And you need to rebuild all the nets of the shopkeepers, everything in this country. Right. So it will take a long time, certainly.
All right, we're talking about a former French colony, so it's definitely been on the minds here. There's ties, historical ties between Bangui and Paris. Let me ask you, David Brown, before we go. I know the State Department's a big place, and I know that Americans are sick of foreign conflicts at this point. Do you have trouble getting on the radar of the decision makers at the Department of State?
No, not at all. The Secretary is very concerned. Secretary Kerry is very concerned about the crisis in the Central African Republic. He's made several press statements. He appeared, actually, I believe it was yesterday or the day before, with our Assistant Secretary, and also talked about the Central African Republic. No, they're very seized at the very highest level. President Obama personally made a message that was rebroadcast repeatedly in the Central African Republic media, a personal message, an appeal for peace and reconciliation among the citizenry of the Central African Republic.
All right. Before we go, Jean-Baptiste KOBA, personally, how do you see things for yourself? Do you see yourself settling down back in Bangui in the years to come?
You know, I don't want to talk to you about my...
Because it looks bleak right now.
Yes, my personal attitude. But
is there light at the end of the tunnel?
It will be a very long path, but we need to have in mind everything boils down to the economy and jobs. We need to restart the economy of this country, politics and economy, because what we are witnessing now is something like a revolution of starving people. And we are dealing with one of the poorest countries in the world. And with this kind of country, everything is possible.
All right, we'll leave it there. I want to thank you, Jean-Baptiste KOBA. Best of luck. And I want to thank as well Dominique, TRINQUAND, Acheikh, IBN-OUMAR, David Brown for joining us from Washington. Thank you for being with us here in the France 24 debate.